Bischoff and Wes Briscoe. Hulk Hogan, you didn't answer my phone calls for 2 years. Did you forget something, Hogan? Hulk Hogan.
Alright, Shove It Show episode 10. Wow, how did we get to episode 10 so fast? Time has flown quickly. If you haven't done so, make sure you head over to the Patreon. There's a bunch of episodes that none of you have seen before. You pay $5, you get a load of content, simple as. But every 5th episode of the Hulk Hogan Show is going to be free on YouTube, so enjoy it like a Sunday roast. Got to thank the people who have been supporting on Patreon so far. You guys are legends. Today's not going to be your normal show. In fact, it's going to be a very abnormal show. There's going to be a lot of wrestlers who shoved it in 2014. They were gone. A lot of TNA originals left the company. What a year for TNA this was. It was all bad stuff, the money had run out. Let's get it started. Every wrestler who left TNA in 2014. Steve Borden, the Stinger, B. Sting was incredibly loyal to TNA and stuck around after WCW. For ages he was the biggest star who didn't wrestle in WWE because TNA kept him under lock and key. It was madness. A lot of people were quite upset about this. Anyway, he had a good time in TNA where he picked up the world title 5 times. It did get a bit stale towards the end. I mean, Steve Borden could barely wrestle at the end. He went through a phase where he was so out of shape that he started wrestling in a baggy shirt. No one wanted to see the icon like this. He kept his career going a bit longer by reinventing himself with the Joker gimmick. I quite liked it, a lot of people didn't. Shove it though. Eric Bischoff, F. This old grey git got so much time on TNA TV. I think he was on TV more than the Hulkster. A complete waste of time. I couldn't stand him when he was on TV. Talk about the Hulk Hogan show, it's more like the Eric Bischoff show at times. The Aces and Eights was his big idea, and it sucked. Well, it was a good idea in principle, but it dragged on for way too long and the supporting cast were just not good enough. Eric Bischoff's ending with TNA was a bit messy. He ended up suing them along with his son over unpaid wages. On reflecting on his time in TNA, he said there weren't really any positives. Well, we feel exactly the same way, you grey git.
If you could go back and change one thing about your TNA run, what would it be?
Not doing it.
Wes Briscoe, F. Every time Wes Briscoe is on a list that I do, it's a straight up F. There's no point even guessing it, it's gonna be an F.
A Briscoe on the bottom?
The greasiest member of the Aces and Eights. He did absolutely nothing during his time in TNA. He was there for 2 years. I've actually looked it up because you people doubt me when I say how bad Wes Briscoe was. Well, I've got stats to back me up this time. Wes Briscoe, 33 matches in 2 years. Jesus Christ. No wonder he didn't get any better. That's an average of 1.3 matches a month. I still have no idea what this man's finisher was supposed to be. Let me know in the comments section down below. Christopher Daniels, well here's a sad one. Give him an A though. This bloke is one of the guys who fits into the TNA Originals group. He did so much for TNA, and then they just let him go like he was nothing. 12 years with the company. He's a 4-time X Division champion and a 7-time tag team champion. He's involved in some of the most memorable things throughout TNA, including the Unbreakable Freeway against Samoa Joe and AJ Styles. But in 2014, when he was teaming up with Frankie Kazarian as Bad Influence, TNA management seemed like they'd rather push Hernandez and Chavo, a tag team that absolutely nobody liked. And the writing was on the wall for Christopher Daniels, who wasn't allowed to wear his superhero tops and management told him off. He was gone, and it was just another reason that fans started tuning out. Lady Tapa, F. She was absolutely woeful. She was hired just to be a rip-off Awesome Kong, but she was nowhere near as good. In fact, speaking right now, I can't even really picture her. She stuck around for a little bit of time, but it turned out that she wasn't good enough. She was far too green. They tried to feud her with Gail Kim, just like they did with Awesome Kong, but then they punched her out of the company and she deserved it. Santana Garrett, C. It was good for what it was. What it was not enough. We all wanted to see more, but I guess it's just tough. During her time in TNA, she stalked Samuel Shaw and then she ended up being his girlfriend. Then the storyline was dropped. Rhino, F. A run that absolutely nobody wanted. It was 2014, but he was still doing ECW reunion storylines. He came back when he was hired by EC3 to betray his old friends, because EC3 paid him a load of money. Well, he should have kept his money to himself, because Rhino was useless at this point. Rhino was supposed to be defending the Carter family, but ultimately Dixie Carter got powerbombed through a table by the Dudley Boys, and Rhino was blamed for this, so he was kicked out of TNA pretty soon after. Chris Sabin, A. 8-time X Division champion, 1-time world champion, and 1-time tag team champion. 8 years with TNA this man lasted. He did have some bad injuries during his time there as well. But man, a lot of people were so upset when Sabin left TNA. He'd always been there. He was another one that TNA shouldn't have let go, because they just shouldn't have let him go. It's Chris Sabin, for God's sake. He is TNA. Hernandez, B. Could Hernandez have been more in TNA? A lot of you seem to think so. Problem is, he didn't really have the mic skills to carry himself in the top elite. Apart from that, Hernandez had everything you'd be looking for in a wrestler. He was huge, he had some good moves, and there was a period of time where the fans were really behind him as well. He ended up being a 7-time tag team champion, roughly 9 years spent with TNA as well. Well, looking at it, he's actually with them right now. Go check him out if you miss Hernandez. Norv Furnham and Dewey Barnes. A. My favourite jobber tag team. Some of you probably stopped watching TNA at this point. Well, let me tell you, you missed out big time on these two. They came into the company just after EC3 joined the company. He basically kept using them in matches to get himself over. He would squash them every single week, and eventually he started beating them in handicap matches. It sounds stupid, but these two were so entertaining, and I was genuinely upset when they didn't give these two a contract. Wrestling needs more jobbers, goddammit, and these two are perfect jobbers. And you can't get more of a jobber name than Dewey Barnes. It just sounds like a little kid's name who sits in mud puddles slapping toy cars around in the snow. And Norv Furnham? What kind of a name is Norv? Is that even a proper name? You tell me. Kaz. A. Another one of the TNA crew who'd been there a long time. 5-time X Division champion and a 3-time tag team champion. Altogether around 10 years spent in TNA. Big things were expected of Kaz at one point, and he was billed as the future. Unfortunately, the future would hold Kaz losing his hair and having to shave it off and being Christopher Daniels' lackey and bad influence. But he did show more personality in this time than the whole of his TNA run before it. For most of his TNA run, he was just a pretty good wrestler. But towards the end, he was great. And as I previously mentioned, when he was just coming into his best, they decided to push Chavo and Hernandez instead of bad influence. And we were all gutted. Devon Dudley. I don't know. A. He helped powerbomb Dixie Carter for a table. That's all he did. He'd left TNA and then he came back just to be part of an ECW revival storyline. The storyline sucked, but I liked Dixie getting powerbombed for a table. Jay Bradley. F. In a confusing gut check segment, he somehow got the contract over Brian Cage, despite Cage being more impressive during the match. Nothing was then seen of Jay Bradley for a few months, until suddenly he was put into the Bound for Glory series. This was completely out of the blue, because he'd done nothing to deserve getting in the running for a world title shot, and he was far off the rest of the guys in the series. He rightfully finished rock bottom. I don't think he won a match. And we were all left thinking, what was the point, as Jay Bradley was released later that year. Snitsky and Ezekiel Jackson. I'm just going to mention these guys briefly because they didn't have proper contracts. They were just there for a couple of shows, but they were brought in during the ECW revival storyline where they were all against Dixie Carter. Dixie basically was a heel at the time and brought them in just to annoy the crowd because they were wrestling in Philadelphia, and everyone knows that Ezekiel Jackson wasn't a proper ECW wrestler. There was actually a time here where Ezekiel Jackson and Rhino were in the ring at the same time, and this marked the first and last time ever where the final proper ECW champion and the final WWE ECW champion were in the ring together. They lost their match and got fired from TNA by Dixie Carter. Good riddance. Bully Ray. A. 3-time tag team champion, 2-time world champion, and he was inducted into the TNA Hall of Fame in 2014. Decent from Bubba. First of all, he had that run with Devon. They were both a bit overweight during this time, but they still had some good tag team wrestling matches.
Hailing from Dunkin' Donuts, from the great state of obesity, Team 3D!
Then he lost the weight and reinvented himself as the leader of the Aces and Eights, and he proved he could do it on his own, unlike Devon. He could do a bit of everything really. He could be intimidating, he could be funny. I really wish they'd had a tag team run with him and Scott Steiner though. Absolute gold when those two were on the mic together.
Will you relax? This match is gonna be easy. I found this girlfriend, and trust me, she's ugly. It's a cross between these rednecks here with no teeth and a billy goat. She's not only ugly, she's fat. Do you gentlemen realize who you're in the ring with? Tag team greatness. You're in the ring with one half of the greatest tag team of all time, and Scott Steiner too. I'm the greatest tag team of all time. I'm one half of the greatest. Just do this. Don't bring her any food. She's fat.
This for me was the year that TNA fell off the map because so many people left and a lot of them were very important wrestlers. 2013 would also be quite a bad year for them as well, but I've picked 2014 due to the amount of originals that left TNA. If you've got a different opinion of that, no offence.